Hi, and welcome to another sneak peek Saturday at the Alameda Free Library. My name is Jenny, and today we're going to read some fiction, and to be precise, some horror fiction. So the book we're going to read is by Josh Malerman, and it's called Pearl. Again, I'm going to read you the flap, but it's a weird one. It's a weird one. You wait for the first chapter. So the flap says, "Go to the farm just outside of town and you hear it. A voice inside your head. What is it? Come to me. A voice that makes you want to pick up that axe over in the corner of the barn and swing it and kill. Feed us now. It is the voice of Pearl. Sing for me. Sing for your precious Pearl." Okay. Okay, let's take a look at the first chapter, shall we? "Sing for me, Brother Paul. Sing for Pearl. Let Pearl know." Okay, so chapter 2. Up Murdoch, away from downtown Chowder, passing the wheat fields and the forest east of the road, tall pines that unfolded like a long complex bedspread separating Chowder from Goblin and the other less agricultural areas of mid-Michigan. They pulled into Grandpa's gravel drive just before noon. Sherry eyed Jeff briefly, checking to see if maybe he'd had a change of heart, if maybe he was smiling like he used to. Grandpa's world was a fun world if you let it be. The farm, where Jeff and Aaron used to ride the horses and chase chickens and oink at the pigs. Where the brothers spent nights outside, sometimes without a tent, sometimes just on their backs on the grassy slope that led from the farmhouse to the barn. This place was childhood. This place was supposed to be special. The farm meant something. "Doesn't it?" Sherry hadn't meant to say that out loud. "Doesn't what?" Aaron asked, but Sherry didn't answer, and Jeff stared at her like he might have known what she was thinking. Sherry parked the wagon by the front porch steps. She looked to see Grandpa standing behind the screen door. He waved. "Hey, Dad," Mom called from behind the rolled-up window. Grandpa waved again, as if maybe he'd forgotten he'd already done so. His thin white hair stirred with an easy autumn breeze. Sherry wondered what was on his mind, what clutter of his own. She and the boys got out of the car. "Hello, Sherry," Grandpa said. "Hello, boys." He looked tired. Sherry always said Grandpa was toughened by farm life. Jeff used to believe that. Sherry hugged him at the door. "Thought I'd put them to work today," Grandpa said, nodding to the boys. "That sounds good," Mom said. They could use it, and it would give her a chance to grovel in private. It had been a hard summer. Stuff it in the mind bag. Yes, the mind bag. The secret, unseen place where Sherry stuffed all her dark thoughts, her absurd worries, the unprovoked hunches she'd felt most of her life, the premonitions of Pearl. Grandpa squinted down at his grandsons. "I was hoping Aaron could collect some eggs for me, and maybe Jeff would like to feed the..." Jeff held his breath. "Don't say feed the pigs, Grandpa. Don't say Pearl." "And why not?" "Horses," Grandpa finished. Sherry smiled, but her own private stresses were drawn firmly on her face. Often she imagined the mind bag hanging on a curled finger in an otherwise lightless room, a place only she could find it, hidden from the prying eyes of Chowder, Michigan, and the whole wide world beyond. But recently, that bag had been relocated to a hip, a place anybody could see if they cared to look. Yes, Sherry Copper had started wearing her emotions on her sleeve, a look she didn't quite love. Her recent anxiety stuck out like the stump of a third foot and was about as useful to boot. "How's that sound, boys?" Grandpa asked. "Good enough?" The brothers nodded. "Yes, eggs and horses, safe areas on the farm." Grandpa walked them into the farmhouse, through the kitchen, to the back door. Aaron followed Mom outside, a foot from the cellar door in the grass, but Jeff paused at the screen, looking down the slope to where the evergreens hit the pig pen. "The horses can't come to you," Grandpa said, and when Jeff looked up, he saw all three of them were waiting. Aaron laughed at him as he exited the farmhouse. Grandpa led him to the stables, and on the way Jeff heard them breathing behind the trees, the pigs. The sound remained lodged in his mind and his bones as he passed them, louder than the horses were, even when he stood inches from the muzzle of a mare. "This here's their favorite," Grandpa said, fishing a handful of damp yellowing oats from a brown wooden trough. "But you gotta be careful, 'cause they'll chew your fingers clean off." Jeff looked up and saw Grandpa smiling sadly behind a show of white whiskers. His eyebrows had always remained dark as midnight, though. "Really?" Jeff asked. "No," Grandpa said, "not really, but it was fun to see the look on your face." It felt good, falling for a joke. Through the open door, Jeff saw Aaron eyeing the chicken coop, readying himself to pick some eggs. "Enjoy," Grandpa said, "but don't eat more than the horses." Another joke. Good. Felt good. Then Grandpa left him alone in the stables. Jeff looked up into the eyes of the brown horse he stood by. "Hello," he said. "You hungry?" It felt good to talk, felt good to pet the horse's nose, to feel the strong neck and shoulders. "You remember me, right?" Jeff smiled at the horse, wished it could smile back. My name is Jeff. Jeff stepped quickly from the animal. A black emotional chasm that came with the sound of his name was wider, darker, deeper than any night bear he'd known before, as if in that moment his ill-defined apprehensions about the farm had been galvanized, and everything Jeff was afraid of was true. He dropped a handful of grains and stepped farther from the mare. Wide-eyed, he stared at her, waiting to hear it again, waiting to hear his name spoken here in the stables. But the horse hadn't said his name. "Mom?" he called, looking to the stable door. "Come, Jeff." Jeff backed up to the stable wall. "Aaron, are you screwing with me?" It could have been Aaron. It should have been Aaron. But Jeff knew it wasn't. He folded his arms across his chest, combating a cold wind that passed through the stable. "Come to me, Jeff." It sounded like the voice was traveling on the wind, or like it was the wind. It was made of something his own voice didn't have. He didn't want to say what it really sounded like. Didn't want to say it sounded like the voice was coming from outside the stables, up the hill, from the pig pen behind the trees. Jeff exited the stables, stood outside under the sun. Aaron was out of sight. Mom was probably in the farmhouse talking to Grandpa. It wasn't pretty watching Mom beg for money. Jeff, it was coming from the evergreens. Jeff knew this now, could hear this now, and he wouldn't have been shocked to see a farmhand peeking out between the branches, using his pointer finger to beckon him closer. "Jeff, come here." Without deciding to do it, Jeff took the dirt path to the trees. He crouched on one knee and split the branches. Through them, he saw the pig pen and the pigs lazing in the mud. Jeff stood up. He didn't want to get any closer. Didn't want to be alone here at all. He ran the grassy hill to the farmhouse. Jeff! Louder now, strong enough to root Jeff to the ground. He looked over his shoulder back to the hidden pig pen. Come, Jeff, sing for me. Cautiously, Jeff walked back down the hill to the end of the row of the evergreens. Creepy. Most of the pigs were gathered together at the far side of the fence. One paced the length of the pen, bobbing his head, snorting, half covered in mud. It looked to Jeff as if he was thinking. Jeff looked back to the chicken coop. No Aaron. Still. When he turned back to the pen, Pearl was all he could see. Pearl. Sitting on his ass like a person might, his front hooves limp at the sides of his belly. His head was cocked slightly to the side, his pink ears straight, high above his head. His bad eye looked dark, hidden, but his good one was fixed on Jeff. In it, Jeff saw an intelligence that scared him. He didn't think a pig could stare the same way a man did, yet Pearl was tracking him, following his lead, as Jeff stepped slowly toward the pen. By the time he reached the gate, Jeff was breathing too hard, felt like he'd done a lot of work, felt like he'd unloaded a truckload of hay, felt weak and skinny and cold and exposed and dumb. Jeff thought, like he's smarter than you. Yes, dumb. That was the worst of it, and Pearl, it seemed, knew it. As a half smile appeared under the pig's snout, or maybe it was just the way his lips naturally curled up at their ends. The pacing pig pissed, and it sounded like a hose shot at the mud. Hello, Pearl, Jeff said. He felt like he had to, like it would have been insane not to, like he would have been admitting something too dark if he was too afraid to say hello to a pig. The other pigs seemed aroused by Jeff's voice. They shuffled in the mud, sat up. One lifted his head to get a better look. Jeff fingered the latch. Pearl watched him, staring, assessing, planning. Jeff pulled his fingers away. A streak of shame ran down his back, like he'd come close to letting something very bad out of the pen. In the distance, Jeff heard Aaron calling out for Grandpa. Pearl didn't take his good eye off Jeff. He sat, regal, aristocratic, impossibly refined. Okay, Jeff said, let's see how smart you are. Jeff shoved off from the fence and felt the full force of an autumn breeze tussle his fair hair. It felt good, like he needed it, like a second wind. He ran to the shed between the barn and the pen and burst through the wooden doors. Empowered, he grabbed hold of a sack of pig feed and carried it back to the pen. Here, Pearl, Jeff called angrily. Open this. He tossed the bag over the fence. It plopped 5 feet from where Pearl sat. The pig looked at the sack. Go on, Jeff said. Open it. 2 pigs from the pile got up to check out the bag, a big black and white one and a huge brown one that looked like 2 in 1. They sniffed the bag. The brown one took hold of it and dragged it a foot. Pearl looked at Jeff again. Not smart enough to open a bag of feed? Jeff taunted. It felt good. Felt good to taunt Pearl. Try another one. Jeff ran back to the shed. He grabbed a hammer and a nail and returned quickly to the pig pen. There were 3 pigs at the sack of feed now. A pink one had joined the other 2. Jeff shook the fence. You see this, Pearl? This is moving because the post is loose. You know what a post is, do you? And if you did, would you know how to fix it? Jeff put the nail against the wood and nailed it in with the hammer. You want to try, Pearl? You think you could figure out how? Jeff tossed the hammer and nail into the pen. Hell, it felt good to taunt him. Jeff ran back to the shed. He grabbed an axe. Pearl, you wouldn't know what to do with this if I handed it to you. The warm wind pressed against Jeff's face, causing the ends of his lips to rise up like pearls. He held the axe high over his head and laughed, and his laughter was taken, sent spiraling behind him, lost to the wind. Pearl didn't move, only stared. The crinkled, burnt skin that covered half his bad eye looked like the rotten wood of a fence post. Like a piece of the farmhouse's shingled roof had fallen to his face. Carrying the axe, Jeff unlatched the gate. He opened it. Let's see how smart you are. The other pigs eyed him as he entered the pen, watching him out the sides of their faces. This close, their snouts looked longer. Jeff stomped through the mud, intentionally trying to scare Pearl. He tossed the axe into the mud at the pig's feet. Go on, Jeff said. Use it. Do something with it. Go on. Show me how smart you are, Pearl. Pearl looked down at the axe. Go on, Pearl. I'm not afraid of you. Another pig, another black and white one, sniffed the axe. Can't figure it out? Jeff mocked. Too much for you, Pearl? Here, let me show you. Let me show you how to use it. Jeff crouched and came up, gripping the tool. He ran a finger along the sharp edge. This is for cutting, Jeff said. He swung hard against the fence. Wood splintered. You see? It's a tool, Pearl. You don't know how to use tools. You don't even know how to open the gate. Jeff swung the axe into the mud. The ground exploded up, splattering Jeff and Pearl together. Jeff wiped the mud from his cheeks. He lifted the axe again. You know what else it's for, Pearl? He smiled at the pig. Pearl stared back. It's for killing Pearl. Killing pigs like you. He took a step towards Pearl. Man, up close, Pearl's belly looked bigger, the folds more defined, the nipples dangling like sores. Scared yet, Pearl? Pearl shifted his hindhooves. Poor piggy. And for a beat, Jeff thought Pearl was going to stand up and face him. I show you how to use the goddamn thing. Jeff swung the axe down hard, splitting the neck of the black and white pig. Blood erupted, gas-like, splattering Jeff's nose and lips. Jeff swung again. The pig screamed, and the terrible sound rose up, and somewhere far away, Jeff thought he heard his brother, mom, grandma, the whole world coming to get him. Jeff swung again. This swing, his last, lopped the pig's head clean off. Jeff dropped to his knees and lifted the severed head. Jeez, it was heavier than the axe. You see, Pearl? Jeff raved. That's how it's done, Pearl. But you're not smart enough to do it. You're not smart enough to know. Pearl only stared, unflinching, unmoved, as Jeff held the pig's Mona Lisa gaze. Clarity struck painfully hard. He was on his knees in the pig pen, holding a bloody head. It was one of Grandpa's pigs. He had killed it. Jesus! Jeff screamed and leaped from the mud. He stepped back and fell over the plump, headless body, bleeding out. Jeff fell on his ass. He looked up and saw Pearl was sitting only a foot away. He's gonna get up, Jeff. He's gonna get up. Waddle over here and eat your face clean off. Jeff scuttled to standing and backed up to the fence. You made me do it, Jeff yelled, more afraid now, more ashamed than he'd known was possible. I'd never do something like that. You made me do it, Pearl. Behind him, voices, urgent, Grandpa hollering, Mom screaming. Jeff, what did you do? Aaron was staring at him, wide-eyed, gripping the fence. Jeff, Aaron said, the innocence in his voice so obvious. Why'd you do that, Jeff? Why? Because Pearl made me do it. But Jeff knew it was worse than that. Pearl made him want to do it. Grandpa entered the pen quickly and took hold of Jeff by the back of his shirt. He dragged him out. "I didn't mean to," Jeff said, but it didn't look that way. It looked like there was an axe in the mud, an axe that Jeff had carried into the pen himself. Grandpa didn't yell. He only held out an open palm to his grandson. "Calm down. It's all right." But Grandpa's eyes were on Pearl. "He knows," Jeff said. "He knows that Pearl made me do it. But these ideas, these thoughts came too fast, flashed too bright, and the guilt Jeff felt crippling, as if he'd been irrevocably changed. "Dad," Mom said. "Dad, I'm so sorry. Oh my God, I'm so sorry." Grandpa waved a hand. "No reason to be sorry. Boy needed to learn eventually. Just got a head start is all. Too fast, too bright, too much good." "You all right, son?" Grandpa held Jeff's chin between his forefinger and thumb. "Why haven't you killed Pearl yet, Grandpa?" And his voice was humiliation. His voice was disgrace. "Is it because Pearl hasn't let you? Because Pearl tells you what you can and cannot do?" Go on and get cleaned up," Grandpa said, waving towards the farmhouse. "I'll take care of the mess." "Dad?" Mom asked, looking from her son to her father. "Go on," Grandpa said again, sternly. Mom went to touch Jeff on the shoulder, but stopped herself. This wasn't like the time Aaron and Jeff lit firecrackers in the basement. This wasn't like the time Aaron got caught stealing a dirty magazine from John's party store. "Jeff?" Mom asked, eyeing the grisly remains in the pen, trying not to look at Pearl. Jeff started walking up the grassy hill. He wiped blood from his face. He looked over his shoulder and saw Grandpa carefully unlatching the gate. He saw Pearl too, sitting on his ass at the far end of the pen, one eye half open, presiding over the split pig like a hangman. "Pearl made me do it," Jeff said to nobody, and then again the correction. "Pearl made me want to do it." But this was deranged. This was not the right way to think, and by the time Jeff reached the farmhouse, the idea of a pig controlling a person, speaking to him without opening his mouth, was the craziest thing he'd ever heard, and for that he was crazy for believing it. Alone in the bathroom, Mom waiting in the living room, Jeff washed his hands off the mud, washed his lips of death, but was unable to rinse off the feeling that things were different now. Unable to uncover the boy beneath the blood, thinking, "Oh no, I'm different now, changed forever, and today, this day, will lead to others. Other days like this day, and nothing will ever be the same again. Not the good stuff, not the bad, nothing." Well, that's one crazy pig. I hope you enjoyed this. Again, it's Josh Malerman, and it's called Pearl. You can see here, it's in our news section. Feel free to place a hold on it. Yeah, hope you enjoyed that, and I see you again in 2 weeks. Bye.